Why do we talk about culture, Korean culture in a course like this, which is called Contemporary Korean Society? Well, let me ask you, can anybody answer that? Why in a course that is supposedly designed to explore many aspects of Korean society, why is this a key issue or topic? Yes?
Well, if we don't understand the culture, we might not understand the contemporary Korea, so we need the background.
That's a perfect answer. You see, what happens around us, okay, comes from something. Nothing comes out of nothing. Okay? It always has an origin. So if you ever wondered why Koreans are so crazy about education, then the answer lies in Korean culture. We have this cultural basis in which we emphasize education. Okay? So that's why if you look at many things that happen around us today, the answer lies in sort of certain key aspects of Korean culture. Okay? But before jumping on to Korean culture, I talk about culture itself because a lot of us don't have a good understanding of what culture is. Okay? So here we go. So the lecture outline was like this. What culture is, we talk about what culture is, cultural universals and cultural diversity, components of culture, and Korean culture according to these sort of 5 specifics. Okay? Okay, significance of culture. So these are some of the sort of, like things that if you know, it's sort of things to talk about on your date, at least. Okay, how, 200,000 years ago, Homo sapiens reached the same anatomical modernity, like same as us. Okay, and the way they behaved, same as us today, about 50,000 years ago, and that's when people migrated out of Africa, okay, to different parts of the world. Okay, that's only 50,000 years ago, right? And human lineage diverged from the last common ancestor, okay, and we diverged from the chimpanzee about 5 million years ago, and in terms of the DNA, we're about 98 to 99% same, okay, with the chimpanzee, but that 1, 2, 3% difference, a huge difference, right? So again, I don't want to offend anyone with strong religious convictions. For example, someone who believes in the creation theory. Okay, so what I'm presenting to you is based on the theory of evolution, without trying to impose this idea, but just to to be on the safe side. This is what social scientists and anthropologists believe. Okay, again, you don't have to agree, but this is what they think. Okay, so over the long evolutionary process, we became what we are today. And the characteristics are there. Almost hairless, bipedal, tool-using, talking, family-forming, self-aware, and highly intelligent social animal. Right? That's what we are. And we have, when do you think we developed human speech? When do you think we started to talk? Was it 200,000 years ago? No. Roughly? So again, I told you how things you learn today, you could talk about on your date. Sorry, if you're not going to be on a date, with friends, okay? With your family members. 10,000 years? Okay, anyone else? Are you thinking? Someone who has, students who have been in my classroom, I've told them over and over. What does it say here? Highly intelligent, social animal, thinking person. And are you doing enough thinking? I don't think so. When I asked you this question, when do you think we started to talk? How many of you thought about that question? Hands up. Be honest. Okay, I'm looking at about 2/3 of you who didn't think. And you know why that is bad? Your tendency not to think is your habit, and that's a terrible habit. Okay? So when you're asked a question, not just in this classroom, but any class you're in, think, because you're making use of your brain cells, which are just, left in the dust. You're not using them enough. Okay? So thinking is our privilege, but you're not taking enough advantage of it. I'm talking about thinking about a question, not just thinking. Because thinking about a question makes you use much, much more brain cells than just thinking or daydreaming. When you just think about nothing, it really is very passive. Okay? There is no real activity in your brain. Okay? But when you think, right? If you were to look at the graphs that go up and down, man, it'll be like, right? But if you're just daydreaming, it's like brain dead. Okay? So whenever I raise a question, think. Okay, 10,000 years, actually 40,000 years ago. Okay? What about writing? When did we start to write? Are these things you knew but you forgot, or you just never knew before? Did you think? Just kidding. Invention of writing about 5,000 years ago, okay? About 3,000 to 4,000, okay? And the printing press? 500 years ago, okay? Don't have time to really talk much about this, but what is the greatest technological development in today's sort of time? The greatest breakthrough in the development of human sort of activities, intelligence, things we do. Wheel. Oh, that's important, but something even more important today.
The steam machine during the Industrial Revolution?
A little bit more recent. Not really, yes.
The internet?
Yes, the internet. I mean, it is considered the most important technological development in human history. Okay? Now, but before that, the greatest technological breakthrough was printing press. Okay? Because that, for the first time in human history, made knowledge accessible to the masses. Okay? Before that, ability to read, okay, and having books was tools of power. Okay? But for the first time, books made knowledge available to the masses. And who did it? Who made use of this to advance his ideas? Martin Luther. Okay? He propagated his ideas on on revolutionizing Christianity. Okay? And it is believed that the printing press back then allowed all other advances that took place in the West. Okay? So, if you ever wonder why all the major advances in civilization took place in the West, one of the key reasons is that although the printing technology was first invented, arguably in Korea, but Chinese say they invented it first, but who cares? They didn't make use of it. Okay? I believe, inventing something is just bullshit if you don't use it. Okay? So whether it was Chinese or Korean, doesn't matter to me, because they never used it. Okay? It was the Europeans who used it first, and that's what they did. I mean, by using, making use of this technology, they were able to make all these advances. Okay? So it's sort of easy to remember. 40,000 years ago, they talked. about 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, they started to write, and then printing press about 500 years ago, and the use of the internet, when? From when? About the mid-1980s, okay? So evolution of the written language, cuneiform script. This is the first form of writing, okay? The second form is here. How do you pronounce this? Hieroglyphs. Glyphs? Glyphs. Hieroglyphs. Okay? From about 1000 BC, okay, or BCE, before Common Era, okay? And cuneiform about 3,000 years or so, okay? So in the previous slide, I said about 5,000, so that should be changed to about 3,000, okay? And then Latin alphabet around this time, but I wonder the history of Chinese writing system. Does anybody know when that was first began to be used? Which came first, Latin or Chinese? Or, yes?
Chinese came first.
Chinese came first. So this is very Western-centric not graph, but figure, right? So, okay, good. And emoticons, 2,000 or so. I mean, I put this in just for fun, okay? Don't take it too seriously. And how long human can live without? Food, about a month. Water, about a week. Sleep, about 4 or 5 days. Internet, a couple of hours. Can I ask everyone, I told you in my first class, you're not allowed to use your laptop. So close it, please. Okay? And because I know that everyone is very antsy to use the internet, right? I mean, even now as I'm talking, I'm thinking of my internet. Just kidding. Okay. As our mental capacity expanded, we became the only species that names itself, and we're termed Homo sapiens, Latin for thinking person. Okay, and so remind yourself that you are a thinking person, and ask yourself: do I do enough thinking? Okay, because it's our privilege, right? And the question is, am I thinking enough, right? Now, every Homo sapiens have spread to every continent, becoming the most widely dispersed species on the planet, and the human population is still growing. So let's just say, along with cockroaches, that Homo sapiens, as a species, is probably the most successful species on the planet, right? If we agree to that, what do you think accounts for this success? So what makes us so special? Or how did we become so successful as a species? Yes?
Able to communicate.
They are able to communicate, which is part of this bigger thing. Yes?
Isn't it that we always wonder and want to answer and keep
Curiosity.
Yeah.
Okay, that is also part of this bigger thing. Yes? Survival of the fittest. That's an idea, right? Okay, so that idea also part of this bigger thing. Yes? Continuously thinking, part of this culture, yes.
Maybe we just use our brain a lot.
Oh, you're always use of brain, yes. What else? Yeah. We can write. That's also part of this bigger thing. I think by the time I'm finished with this, you're going to be shocked. Oh my God. I didn't know that we had this, and I didn't know that we didn't have that. And what could those things be? Anybody who guesses this right, I'm going to make that person my favorite drink, Maxim mixed coffee. I always offer this as a prize, but by the end of the term, only about a handful of students get to drink that coffee because you guys are not thinking enough. Yeah. Play. It's part of this bigger thing. Yeah.
Culture?
Culture. My God. That is correct. And your name is?
Diane.
Diane. Thank you. You see, we are, of all the species on the planet, we are the only species that use culture to survive. And what about other animals, other species? What do they rely on for survival? Instincts, of course. Instincts are genetically and maybe genetically and biologically determined ways of behavior for which the animals do not have control over. So they're born with the knowledge to survive. How do migratory birds know where to go? What about salmons? Okay? So they have this genetically coded knowledge how to survive. But do we have instincts? This is the big question. Do we have instincts? The points I make here are not my own unique interpretation, but this is what culture studies experts say, and this is what I would say most social scientists and anthropologists agree. Okay? So, do we have any instincts? Yes. What are the examples? Remember, let me define instinct again. Instinct is genetically and biologically determined forms of behavior which this person or species do not have control over. Yes?
I would say motherly instincts.
Motherly instincts. So,
You just know how to do it.
so how do you account for certain mothers who kill their babies? Right? Because instinctually, it never happens. Okay? Of course, there are exceptions, right? Yes?
I'm thinking about the wild children. There were some children, for instance, who were raised in the forest, for
Right.
instance, without any human around them, and they could behave like animals.
So that proves that instincts are alive, or that they...
Well, we were also originally animals, so
Yeah.
why not shouldn't we be able to have instincts as well?
Again, instead of talking about exceptional cases, I want to hear something that is common to human species, okay, that makes us rethink about this point that we don't have instincts. Okay? Yes?
Just basic stuff like if we don't eat for 3 days, we're going to do anything to eat.
No. Is that really true? Some people go on a hunger strike. What about people who commit suicide? Korea has the highest suicide rate among the OECD countries, 29 people every day. No, just kidding. Actually, about 50 people every day. See, again, if you have instinct, you can't kill yourself. Okay? Animals do not kill themselves. Okay?
Survival instinct.
Again, how do you survive? What things you do to survive? We learn. You see. Yes?
Fight or flight. Fight or flight.
Fire.
Fight or flight.
Oh, fight or flight. Isn't it about understanding the context? And if I could beat this guy, I'll fight. So it's culture. Okay? You learn, whether the opponent is someone who could beat you up just badly, or someone you could, yeah.
Not really a comment to that, but a comment on your part where you said that animals don't kill themselves. There's actually some research done on that, and there have been shown patterns of suicide in animals as well.
Like I said, there are exceptions. Yeah, I'm talking about something that's common. Yes.
Maybe we don't have instincts.
Oh, I mean that's what these specialists of culture studies argue, that we don't have instincts. Okay, and again, I don't want to offend anybody. It's just an idea. Okay, but let's say prevailing idea. Okay, but that does not mean that you have to accept. Okay, did you have your hand up?
Emotional responses?
Emotional responses. What emotional responses are you talking about?
Like, embody emotional response? Like when you, I don't know. I have no idea what I'm saying.
No. Keep it up.
Like when you feel an emotion, your body still
Reacts.
reflects that, and I think that's an instinct because you can't control it.
No, you see, let's say you want to cry, but you could withhold that, you see. See, that's instinct. No.
I really want to cry.
Some people could withhold that, but instinct, you have no control over it.
You have no control with the hormones in your body when you want to cry, I guess.
No. There were many times that I felt like crying, but I withheld it.
Yeah? You didn't.
What about when I want to laugh? I sometimes don't want to offend somebody, so I just withhold it.
Okay.
See, that's the difference. See, we all have sexual desires, but does that mean that we act it out all the time? No, we could withhold that. But animals cannot.
But you withhold the instinct that you have.
No.
Right?
That is why we have a different term. I'm gonna turn over.
You win. Go ahead.
I'm gonna show you what we have a little bit later. Okay, we have what is called reflex. Okay, when something is like, you know how you blink your eye when let's say a ball is thrown at you, that is reflex. And we have drive, sexual drive to satisfy our hunger, drive to satisfy our thirst. But the difference between instinct and drive is that drives we could control. You see? But animals cannot control anything. If they are driven by something, they have to do it, or they, you see the difference? Yeah.
When you eat, you shit. I've never seen a person who was...
What did I hear? But it's again, like I think that was a good point. It's it's a bodily function, not really instinct. Okay. So I think there are a few examples which show. Okay, the argument is this. What's your name?
Shannon.
Where were you when I made a point
Where was I?
about not using the internet? I mean, the laptop.
I was about to ask you after.
Please close it.
Okay.
What the further argument goes like this. We used to have instincts, but we discarded them. Why? Because culture is better. It is a better means of survival than instincts. Okay? So that is why over long years of evolution, we, one by one, got rid of our instincts and began to rely on culture for survival. Yes? In us. So, there are traces of instincts that we used to have. For example, if you stick a finger into the mouth of a baby, what happens? Baby sucks, right? But amazingly enough, within about 1 or 2 years of birth, that disappears. You stick your finger into a 3-year-old baby, he or she will spit at you, right? No longer sucks on it, right? So that shows you how we used to have instincts. Also, if you put a finger into the palm of a let's say 3-month-old baby, what happens? He or she holds onto it, right? Really, hard. That also disappears after 1 year or so. So we can come up with some examples of instincts, but they disappear over time. Okay? So, again, you don't have to agree with the idea here, but at least you know now how we may not have instincts, because there is nothing in us that we have no control over. Okay? Do you agree with that at least? Okay? But if you look up the definition of instinct, it is genetically, biologically determined forms of behavior for which this thing does not have control over. Okay? So let's so again, culture is a more efficient survival scheme. That is why we have culture. Okay? So that's why, you know, people living in different parts of the world, because they adapted to the different environment, you have these fascinating varieties in the way we live. Okay? Hence, cultural diversity. Okay? Okay, so here is what reflex is. Okay? This is close to maybe instinct, but it's, again, it's something very simple, like sneezing or blinking of an eye and knee jerk, right? These are reflexes, okay? And drive, oh, here are these reflexes, okay? Sucking reflex, palmar aggressive reflex, and swimming reflex. You know, if you, I don't want to say this, drop, or if you put a baby in the water, you know, the babies know how to swim, although they drink a lot of water, you know. So we have these primitive, again, these are not called instincts because they disappear, okay? Again, isn't it funny how babies could swim, but 5-year-old cannot swim, okay? They have to learn how to swim, all right? So I'm sure, you know, knowing this, I don't think too many of you would actually try this with, with a newborn baby. But studies have shown that, yes, newborn babies could swim, okay? So these reflexes, and then drives, okay? These are also unlearned, but through culture, we have come to control these, okay? So we all experience hunger, but we have to learn what can be eaten, when, how, and when, even where it can be eaten, right? Now, you may take for granted things you eat. Yeah, I know what to eat. But if you're born in the wild, would you know what to eat? All the different vegetables, what about like all the, like rice, would you know how to cook that? Just by, you know, just on your own? So pretty much everything that you know is learned, okay? I mean, some could go as far as to say that even sexual behavior is learned. That you're not born with it. I mean, the drive is there, but how to do it is learned. And you may ask yourself, how did I learn that? I don't want to talk about that, but I'm sure, you know, when I say that, it'll sort of have some, you know, resonance. You could sort of agree to that, right? So pretty much everything about us, we learned. Okay, we learn through culture. Okay, and we can override our drives. For example, suicide, drive for self-preservation. So I have to share with you my own personal story of how I, you know, did something that sort of went against this drive for self-preservation, okay? For which I got into a lot of trouble with my wife. One day, about 6-7 years ago, I was standing on the platform of a subway station, okay? And as I was waiting for my subway train, I saw this drunken man, right? Not walking straight. And I was sort of worried that something might happen to him. And I tried not to look because I was busy, trying to go my way. But I couldn't sort of help sort of taking a peek at this guy. And I looked for the last time and he was gone. So I walked to, it was a platform in the middle, right, of the two-way tracks. So I walked over to the other side and there he was, lying on the railway track, face down, right? Now, and I see, the lights of the subway train coming in. And in that split second, I had to decide, do I jump into the tracks to save him or just ignore? As other people did. There were other people, right? Guess what I did? I jumped in. And I grabbed him by the, the shoulders. And as I lifted him up, that's when other people came to our side and helped me, get him up to the platform. And they also helped me get up. And within about 2 seconds, the train came in. And I waited for half an hour for someone to show up to, say something nice to me, but nobody showed up. Just kidding. I sort of wasn't, because I was busy going my way. I just left. But that incident never made the news anyway. But the point is, in that split second, I have forsaken my drive for self-preservation to help someone else. And at the time, I sort of, as a good sociologist, I tried to analyze, why the hell did I do that? And the answer was this. Again, in that very split second, I was worried about having this guilt, okay, for not saving someone when I could, okay? So I named it fear of guilt, okay? So that is why I did something crazy, according to what my wife said. So that day and for about 1 week, I had to sleep on the couch. All right, so this is what I have to say about culture versus instincts. And I hope that this discussion will at least make you think again about instincts and about culture, okay? And what culture means to us, okay? So I hope you finally understand that culture is that much important to us, okay? Something that we always take for granted is so important, okay? So to re-emphasize, we rely on culture to survive, and because humans live in all different environments, they develop different ways to adapt, okay? That is why we have this cultural diversity, okay? Now, let's just speak about a few examples. Now, sacred cow in India. Now, I think many of you just think about this sacred cow belief or practice in India as simply a religious practice, right? Now, if we apply this idea that we have different cultural sort of manifestations because of different adaptations to the environment, what can you say about this sacred cow practice in India? What are some of the practical implications of practicing this sacred cow? What about prohibition against pork consumption in Judaism and Islam? Again, even here, it is not just a purely religious idea. It is an adaptation to the environment. Can anybody take a guess? Maxim Coffee's on the line again. Yes?
The places where this religion developed are very hot weather, so
Yeah.
it wasn't good for conservation of this kind of food, so it was prohibited to sell.
Very good. So in the case of prohibition against pork in Judaism and Islam, you see, these religions arose in desert environment, right? And at the time and even today, firewoods were rare and water was scarce. So a lot of people died eating uncooked or not well cooked pork. Okay? So what do you do when, we're talking about 2,000 years ago, right? When formal legal laws were ineffective or non-existent. Many laws or regulations were cloaked in religious sort of terms. Okay? So religion was sort of borrowed to ensure that people do not eat something unsafe. Okay? What about sacred cow in India, where consumption of beef is forbidden? And the same thing. In India, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, the country suffered from, regular cycles of drought and flood. And every time that happened, there was a shortage of food. And what did people do? They slaughtered cows to eat. But after flood or drought, things return to normal. And what do you need to cultivate the land? Cows. So, but then because people ate so many cows, there was shortage of cows. So there was this vicious cycle. Okay? So they made it a law, okay, not to eat beef. So that is why, because of this peculiar environment in which floods and droughts, okay, brought about shortage of food, which led many people to eat beef, that led to further shortage of food. The one way that the ancient people in India adapted to this problem was to forbid people from eating cows. Okay? So you see, even something that we typically think of in terms of something religious, it was really a practical adaptation to the environment. Okay? And another interesting example is cannibalism in pre-Columbian America. Now, through movies and even documentaries, you've heard how Aztecs practiced cannibalism, right? And what was the justification? No, they didn't outright kill people to eat. But what did they do before eating human flesh? They killed people to offer these corpses as gift to God. It was the most sacred form of tribute to God. Okay? But which came first? They kill an enemy or chose someone to offer as a sacrifice, and then, hey, we have we have a corpse. Why don't we might as well eat it? Or did their desire to consume flesh come first? Okay, according to the ideas that I share with you in India and in Islam and Judaism, the idea is that they needed proteins. Okay? Now, if you compare, you know how, well, you would all agree that Native Americans in North, Central, South America migrated from Asia. They are Mongoloids, right? Now, as you've seen in many Western movies, Native Americans in the USA, they're big, okay? They're as big as white people. Compared to these big Native Americans, if you look at Central and South American Native Americans, they're relatively shorter and smaller. You know what the difference was? In North America, Native Americans in the North, their main diet was buffalo. And there was just plenty of it. You just walk out of your, what do you call the teepee, and the buffaloes were there. So one way that these white settlers defeated the Native Americans was to slaughter buffaloes, because buffaloes were their main diet. Because these Native Americans in the North had such a ample supply of proteins in the form of buffaloes, they were big. But in contrast, in Central and South America, they were all forests. And these places had very few species and a small number of big animals with which they could supply proteins with. So that's why Central and South Americans always suffer from the lack of proteins. So what do? Eat human flesh. Okay? So that's, again, it has nothing to do with the religion. They just used religion to, in a way, justify their human flesh or just their cannibalism. Okay? Again, it's an idea that you may agree with or disagree with. Okay? But this is, again, another example of how people living in the given environment adapt. Okay? One more example is the sinecide or geronticide in China, Japan, and Korea, and even among the Eskimos or Inuit. You know how the Inuit always suffer from the lack of food, especially when the winter, the weather conditions in the winter get so bad that they really cannot go out hunting. So when they move to the next location, they leave old people or female children behind and move on. And that's been their practice. Okay? Again, just to survive, right? And in China, Japan, and Korea, it is believed that when there was a shortage of food, they took the elderly, man or woman, to the top of the mountain, left them there with maybe 1 or 2 days worth of food, and walked down. Okay? So again, that is how all cultures all over the world adapt to the environment. Okay? Do you have any questions up to this point? Okay, for the next 1 minute, we take a 1 minute break. Without leaving your desk or seat, just do some stretching. Isn't that good? You know, Okay, not really 1 minute, but anyway, next sort of subtopic is cultural universals and cultural diversity. And you see, we're going to talk about, what universal elements there are in all different cultures, and then talk about cultural diversity. And within that sort of a bigger frame, we talk about Korean culture. Isn't that fair enough? Okay, so let's see what cultural universals are first. But really a simple question, and I want you to all think. But if you already know, you don't really have to think, right? How many people live on Earth now? Be exact. When I said exact, to the last digit, now that will make you think, no? But roughly, 7 billion. Only 7 billion? Let me see. 7.1 billion. Yeah, I think so. Yes. 7.1. You have to check this rather often because it changes quite often because of rapid population growth. And how many distinct cultures are there in the world today? If you're a philosopher, you could easily say 7.1. Because, we like to believe that there is this universe within yourself, right? Cultural universe maybe. Anyway, according to UN estimate, roughly, let me just entertain one answer. How many cultures are there in the world, according to a UN estimate? Your chance to speak into the microphone.
Maybe like a couple hundred.
Couple of hundreds. Only a couple of hundred. How many countries are there in the world today, roughly? 200, some 200, like 20 or 30. But you see, in China alone, there are 50 different ethnic groups, right? So, yeah.
But how do they define a culture?
Very good question. How depending on how you define culture, but I think the big sort of cultural criterion is what? Number one criterion. Language, that's right. And how many languages are there in the world? Almost 7,000. So you have 10,000 because speakers of these 7,000 different languages are 7,000 distinct cultural groups. And 3,000 based on maybe ethnicity, religion, and other big criteria of culture. And cultural universals versus cultural diversity. All right. So all humans face the same basic needs. So we engage in similar activities that contribute to our survival. And Donald Brown, in his book called Human Universals, identified a list of 67 customs and practices that are common to all human cultures all over the world. So for example, every culture has names, meaning the members, right? So even a tribe of, let's say, hundreds, everyone has a name. But we all have different names, right? And every culture has a calendar. There are certain standards of appearance. There are activities. So every culture has sports, dancing, games, jokes. And every culture has social institutions like family, law, religion, customary practices, cooking, rules governing sexual conduct, and body language, including gesture. So the list is about 67, but how they are expressed, are they all the same across different cultures or different? Different. That's why we get to talk about cultural diversity. For example, every culture has names, but what kinds of names we have are all different, right? So in English, you have names like, Andrew, John, Susan. But in Korean, we have 철수, 은수, 인수. So we're gonna have some fun doing this. Cultural universals. I'm just providing you with some examples of cultural universals, and one is body language. Okay, so every culture has body language, and the expressions of these emotions are the same all over the world. Okay, when someone is sad, what do? Okay, so these expressions of emotions, all the same. Okay. What percentage of our, let me skip this. Now, so this is cultural universals, and the question is, can you think of any culturally universal gestures? One is frowning or crying when sad. This is culturally universal. Every culture practices this, okay? It's the same. Smiling or laughing when happy, okay? These are two examples of body language that are culturally universal, okay? And the third example is, so I didn't want to include pictures of, someone crying, but you know what that is like, right? But smiling or laughing when happy, universal. This is my son when he was, I'm just kidding. Actually, this is my son. Just kidding. My third child. Fourth child. You see, different colored faces, but universally the same, right? Now, that is just the facial gesture. Now, I want to show you the question first. It is believed that our minds change our bodies. That is, if we are happy, then we are healthier, both physically and mentally. You've heard how smiling is good for you, right? Why is smiling good for you? See, when you smile, your brain releases endorphins. Okay? You know what endorphins stand for? Endo, indigenous. It's within your body. Fin, something fin. It stands for morphine. So what it means is that morphine-like substance being released within your body. And what is morphine? Does it make you feel good or not? Yes. So smiling makes you feel good. It creates this euphoria. That is why I always tell my friends and people I know, smile as often as you can. Why? Life is as hard as it is. Now, there are a lot of things that you don't feel, you may not have any reason to smile about, but still smile. Why? Smiling has been with us for millions of years. So our bodies only recognize, they don't know why you're smiling. They just recognize the movement of your facial muscles. So let's say, can you do a big smile? Did you have anything to smile about? No. But when she just smiled, her brain just recognized that she smiled. So endorphins were released. That is why psychologists say that even if you have nothing to smile about, smile. Because your brain will release endorphins. That is why I smile all the time. I smile in front of my computer. I smile on the subway. But how do I smile on the subway? I'll show you. Cover your face. You see, this is what I'm doing. Nobody sees me, right? Smiling. So do that all the time. So even in classroom, okay? If you live, there you go. He's practicing right now. So please, anytime you're stressed out, smile. Okay? Again, your brain only recognizes the changes in your facial structures, facial muscles, and it recognizes when you smile, doesn't matter why. It only recognizes the changes in facial structures. Now, the next question is, do our bodies change our minds? Okay? The first one was smile, right? Your facial muscles. Now, is there any bodily gesture that makes you feel good? Does anybody know about this? Yes?
I think so, like if you're big or something like that, you have more confidence.
If you
Have like an open posture,
Mm,
you have more confidence.
very good. And it's called gesture of victory or pride. And how do you do this? What is the victory gesture? There you go. And I do this on the subway too. Not only do I smile, but when I, waiting for the subway, I don't just stand around, I walk. And when I walk, I do this. And if someone thinks I'm crazy, who cares? Because I won't see them again. No, it's not true. But I do that often, as often as I can. And sometimes if this is too much, I go like this, right? It's a stance of confidence, okay? Okay, here you go. Here are some pictorial images. Now is this a posture of confidence or the opposite? Opposite. So don't do this, okay? Always open up your shoulders. And there you go. This is the stance, victory stance. And this is really the best way, okay? V. With your chin up like this. So everyone, do this. Is there anybody who's not doing this? And you do this as often as you can. Now, these are all postures of confidence. The opposites are these. And your body recognizes this. That's the thing. Over millions of years of evolution, our brains recognize these as signs of confidence, these as signs of the opposite. Okay? And am I just making empty claims here? No. Psychological studies have shown that when people assume these confidence-building postures, their male hormones account for feeling good and confidence, they go up. While cortisols, do you know what cortisols are? I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. Cortisols are stress hormones. Now when you do this, you think the cortisols go down or go up? Go down right away. You see, that's the thing. If you do this, you don't have to wait for like half an hour before this, let's say, endorphins kick in. It's happens within 30 seconds. Now, are you going to thank me or not when you, from today on? You see, as soon as I get up in the morning, this is what I do. And I hope you do the same, because it makes you feel good. Okay? All right? And smile. And when you do this, who should you be thinking about or thanking? Andrew Kim. So, in the empty classroom, you could do this. It's amazing. Only if you have power you could do that, okay? Or something you could do really easily, right? This. You don't do this in front of a professor, right? What you're seeing today is a 1,000,001 lecture that I give at conglomerates. So you're getting your money's worth. Okay, so those are cultural universals. And now we turn to cultural diversity. So every culture has, names, standards of appearance, jokes, sports. But every culture, how the jokes are told, what the contents are different. Okay, so even with sports, for example, traditional sport in Korea is 씨름, right? The Korean traditional wrestling. In England, it would be soccer, right? So every culture has a sport, has sports, but what sports are practiced are different. Okay, and while there are many different examples of cultural diversity, I want to just focus on a few examples. Okay, and with the time we have left, just on standards of beauty. Okay, so again, every culture has standards of beauty, but what is considered beautiful is different from culture to culture, right? A tribe in Thailand, women are considered beautiful if they have these neck rings. The more you have, the more beautiful you are. Okay? And this is a tribe in the Amazon, so it must be very painful, right? And this is a tribe in Ethiopia. This is the lip plate. So the bigger the plate, the more beautiful you are. Okay? So we've seen how and this is in China. It's called foot binding. I'm sorry that I'm sharing with you just some sort of extreme examples. Okay. So I told you about how I want you to, interact with me via email. So if you find other good examples of how standards of beauty are different from culture to culture, you could share with me, okay? Something more, not as extreme as these, okay? But these extreme examples do exist or have existed, right? This was so popular in China that from about 10th century to the end of the 19th century, up to 10 billion Chinese women have practiced this. Okay? Because it was a sign of beauty and sign of wealth. Because if you had this foot binding, it meant I don't have to work. Okay? And for men, to have a woman who had foot binding was to say, I have a wife who does not have to work. Okay? So it was very popular, and you can see it must have been very painful, right? So this also shows you how standards of beauty tend to be focused on women because for the longest time in human history, we have lived in male-centered society, right? Or sexist. These are all different women, okay, not the same. But this is the finalist of 2013 Miss Korea pageant. So, again, they're all different individuals, okay? But they all sort of look the same because our standard of beauty have become so westernized, right? With big eyes, double eyelids, right? And so the point is that most of these women must have gotten plastic surgery done on their face, so if you could find sort of standards of beauty that are male-focused, please share with me either pictures or whatever you could find, so that we have a balance, okay? Or even like now, do you know of any example of standards of beauty of a particular culture that you want to share with? Maybe for men? Or standards of manliness?
Well, big muscles, six-pack, stuff like that. So.
But do women really like that? Because I think men are mistaken in believing that having these big muscles are what it takes to be attractive. Because maybe because I don't have big muscles, I like moderate muscles. Yes. What is different? Mm. Oh.
And a lot of my friends from Australia came down on to visit me, and they were very surprised by their representation. That's why they selected on a daily basis. They would wear a lot of clothes, very beautiful, but do the Western dinners for me, but they wouldn't imagine.
That's, I think, quite astute observation. I mean, I myself, I think, try maybe more than a typical professor in the West to look good, right? And have I told you about the rings and all this? Well, this is a good time. You see, when my family immigrated to Canada, life was very difficult to adjust and everything. And the only thing that kept me sane was music, okay? Not just any music, but heavy metal, which I still enjoy listening to. And what do heavy metal, like singers, what do they look like? They have like rings in every finger. So I'm just limiting myself to 2 rings. But if I really wanted to go all out, it would be 10 rings. And earrings and nose piercing. But so now you know why I'm so maybe different with this. But I'm just expressing my love for music. Okay. Anyway, I think we have to stop here, and we'll continue on Thursday. Thank you.